Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
So welcome to the Marketing MASH, brought to you by the Marketing Scope. I'm Eric Vidal, Editor-in-Chief Content Officer. Obviously, everyone knows Brian Fanzo, who is the other co-host, along with Shelly Kramer. Welcome, Brian. Welcome, Shelly. Shelly's the president of V3B, speaker, social expert, marketing whiz, and overall smart person. And Brian, your introduction is going to change here. Your introduction is going to be I saw you all over social the last few days. You're hobnobbing with all the big celebrities. So I'm just going to call you Big Celebrity now because you were with the who's who of Hollywood this week.
Just because you're the person that hangs out with them doesn't mean that you're on their level. And that's the key here. I'd say I have the invite to the party. I'm just not the reason the party's thrown.
Well, I thought that was pretty cool. And hopefully you get a chance to share some of that with us today. But
I will.
Today we have a special guest, and Jonathan Mast is the Director of Social Media and Digital at Sedgwick. And I hope I pronounced that right. Sedgwick, right?
That is correct. Thank you.
And CMS, Client Management Services. So first of all, welcome, Jonathan. And tell me, social for client management services, that sounds complicated right off the bat. So let's first tell me a little bit about tell us a little bit about what you guys do over there and what your role is.
Sure. Thanks again for having me. Thanks, Shelly. I appreciate you picking me up on this. We actually, it's just Sedgwick now, and we are just a little over 12,000 colleagues in 5 countries. And we handle claims for large, small, middle market companies, work comp, liability, disability, managed care. So, I always say we're one of those companies that you may not hear of unless you've had possibly an accident on the job, might not want to. We usually help people when they're having one of their worst days. So it's kind of a quiet industry. We're a private company, but we've had tremendous success. I've been with the company a total of 13 years, and we've just continued to grow. So it's been a great run. We jumped into social and digital 3 years ago. And really, our industry is very slow on the uptake. We have some good leaders now, but if you go to one of our conferences, you're still going to find it very low on people using some of the social aspects. So a lot of what I do here is social brand evangelism and trying to get not only our colleagues, but others in our industry starting to use all this great technology.
Yeah. So first of all, before we get to the question, I want to say, I know you have a big game tonight against Valley Center. So I want to wish you luck. I know it's a big rivalry. I think
I
it's a
tried
football game there.
It's one of you would think a name like Sedgwick, my stream gets filled up with Kira Sedgwick, Edie Sedgwick, and then this nice little school out here in Kansas. I think they play 8-man football. So we try to throw a little love their way, and I think it's kind of fun to jump in with people like that, and just again, a lot of times people see brands, especially in B2B, and what we do is maybe not very emotionally connected. And so I think it's one of the things that does that, and that's why I'm loving the streaming media, Periscope and Blab and other other platforms we can use.
Well, let's talk about 2 things. I have 2 questions for you, Jonathan. One of them is, tell us a little bit about, you got into social media 3 years ago, right? Tell us a little bit about that journey of jumping in. And then after that, I'd love to talk more about the live streaming because, I know Brian has a lot of passion and input on that topic as well. But tell us a little bit about that jump in first into social media.
Sure. And definitely, Brian, you've actually solved I was watching one of your Periscopes one day, and you solved one of my initial issues, but we'll get to that. So I appreciate that. But
cool.
I actually got into social media back in 2009. I took a detour from Sedgwick for 3 or 4 years and worked for a global engineering firm here in Kansas City. Again, not an industry where at that time, very conservative. They just turned 100 years old, but the engineering business was very competitive to hire engineers. And so I was grateful that that company, Black & Veatch, was willing to, we started with a Facebook page, and then we launched a intern blog and had interns around the world blog about their experiences working for an engineering firm. And then Sedgwick, who I'd worked for 11 years, called and said, hey, our CEO, Dave North, very progressive, and said, hey, it's time to get into this business. We need to be in the digital space, and we would love for you to come back. And I was very happy. I kind of grew up with this company, so it was nice that they have said, we're going to endorse, do whatever we can. And so, as Shelley knows, a lot of what our organization is about is being thought leaders. We're the leader in our industry. We believe we have the brightest people. But how do we get that information out? And we do that through digital technology and digital platforms. And one of the first things I did when I came back was launch our YouTube channel and begin to go around to a lot of our conferences and events, videoing, interviewing our executives, our thought leaders. And since that time, I use an iPhone and a nice little duct tape guerrilla marketing campaign for videoing. And we've recorded about 100 videos in 3 years that we find a lot of good response. And then, of course, we've gotten on to Twitter and Facebook, and then LinkedIn is probably our number one space where a risk manager, who is kind of our target person that would do business with us, they're going to be a very conservative by nature user of technology. So as we all know, LinkedIn is still a great resource. And we do a lot with our technology, or with our LinkedIn posts, and trying to get information out through that as our hub, along with our blog, which we publish every week. So
Jonathan, we got a good question from Mr. Crawford. So how did you, coming in, how did you change the minds of some of those folks that were less interested in getting to social? Because, this was just 3 years ago.
Sure. Well, I think proof is in the pudding. And so, one of the things that I brought and talked about was search engine optimization. So when you search for a company such as ours, and we're in a business where, as I said, many times we're dealing with people on not their best day. I mean, our CEO talks that every day 26,000 people go to work not expecting to have an injury or to be diagnosed with cancer. And a lot of times it's a good thing. They find out they're expecting a child, but we're going to deal with FMLA. So you search, and you do find people who may not have been necessarily happy with what happened in their interaction with someone in the insurance and risk business. And by putting that positive information, those positive stories out there, now when you go and search, you're going to find a lot more relevant content talking about the good things we do, how we help people get back to work, how we help them resume their careers. And that's really what we're trying to do, along with our clients that we service, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And so, go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, if I could jump in here and just interject, Jonathan and I go way back.
Way back.
And way back. And one of the things that I think that Jonathan does so well, and he's been with Sedgwick for, is it 3 years or 4 years, Jonathan?
3 years.
3 years. And before that, he was in the AEC space, working for a large engineering consulting firm that had a global presence. And when Jonathan, as many of us, when we walk into either of these jobs, in Jonathan's case, or these relationships, in the case of us and our clients, we're change agents. And we're trying to shake things up and do things that they've never thought of doing before. And there are many people that are very apprehensive, and they're very nervous about walking out on this limb. And one thing I think that, to answer your question, I think it was Tim that asked this. I think that one thing that Jonathan has been so masterful at is just not trying to be all things to all people, just to find one little area that we can tell a story, make a hero, get an advocate, show proof of concept, and just take, and he's so patient about, even though that's not his nature, but he understands the nature of an enterprise business and how slow to move it is, especially when you're in the enterprise space. And I think it's applicable really across businesses of all size, given my experience. But he's so patient, and he really does laser in on here's where we can make an impact. Here's our plan. Here's how we're going to show our doubters that this is possible. And that really, to me, has been so much a part of the secret of your success, Jonathan.
Right. And thanks, Shelley. I appreciate it. And of course, we're throwing out the love here, and Shelley truly has been a mentor since we first met here in Kansas City. And I think that is a key component, is to go out and say, we're not going to be on 7 platforms, especially in our enterprise environment. So what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it well? And then Shelley met a couple of people that I work with, and was on one of our monthly webcasts. And Kimberly George is one of our senior executives who, when I came back, said, I want to be a part of the social media space. Help me, train me, and then I'll do it once I get going, I can do it myself. And so it's the adage of, teach a person to fish and they'll never go hungry. So Kimberly 3 years ago had 7 followers on Twitter. And today just recently, I looked before I came on, and she's over 7,000. And a lot of people will say, well, I guess you probably handle her Twitter account, and she started a LinkedIn group, but she does that all herself. I mean, we helped her get going, and that's led to many opportunities of meeting CEOs, being asked to speak at industry events, and that type of, exciting responses. So I think that's where too many times we try to jump in, and even with Blab and Periscope, we're all going, how do we use this? And let's start doing Periscopes today. And then we don't have a strategy for why we're doing it. And of course, I'm fortunate to be paid to jump in and try these, but I still am not going to recommend we do something without a strategy.
So, Jonathan, you mentioned earlier about you're leveraging live streaming, and some of the platforms are Periscope and Meerkat, I think, were a couple that you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how you got started with that, and what are some of the results you're seeing there.
Sure. And this is where I give a shout out to Brian. So, as we go to we speak at many, many conferences every year. I travel to, hello, Shelley. I travel to, 8 to 10 of these events where we have a lot of our senior executives speaking. And I began to think, I heard about Periscope, and I thought, what a great way, again, to maybe humanize who we are, what our business is about. Maybe people only see a print interview with our CEO, but he's very charismatic, has a great presence, or Kimberly that I mentioned. So I went to do it using Periscope, and found that it was pretty interesting that we could draw in an audience that maybe are not immediately our client base, but then you can repurpose that content by sharing it on LinkedIn, sharing it on your Twitter, and taking that, and you've got that content saved so you can always use it again. So Brian, here's where you come in. One Saturday, I think I'm sitting there watching one of your broadcasts, and I had struggled with the fact that, we have 4 or 5 people who have access to our corporate Twitter account, which is how you log in with Periscope. But we're at 100 conferences a year. Or I have 100 executives around the country who I think I would like to have on a Periscope. And you did your thing about you mounted your camera and you interviewed somebody via Skype, right?
Right.
And I saw that and I was like, that's brilliant. And so immediately that week I interviewed 2 of our vendors out in Los Angeles, and I mounted my phone, had them come in via Skype. And now I've done that with 3 or 4 of our executives, where we'll have a weekly thought leadership chat. They come in through our Skype or our instant messaging client, and then I've got the phone mounted, and I can be on the Periscope, and we can broadcast live. So to me, there's a barrier that we've removed that maybe brands would look at and go, well, I don't want to relinquish all my control and be in multiple places at one time.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead,
Brian.
No, I was just saying, I love it. I like the idea that, for me, it's, trying to figure out how to use a channel that would be a solo channel to celebrate others, right? Because I don't think eventually people don't want to tune into not only a brand hail, but I'm sure it's with the same thing with change, right? I think, and Tim Crawford and I played in the same pool. We are in the data center industry, or dealing with the data center industry pretty in depth, and that industry is so far disconnected from digital change and the power of social. And it actually made it really easy for me to stand out at data center conferences, because I was really one of the only people that were live tweeting at an event probably 2 years ago. But I think that idea of like driving change, how you said focusing on one channel, but also understanding the value that your audience provides. I love hearing like the Skype interview. For me, even the idea of allowing other people to have a voice on a brand handle shows that it's more than just one person or one marketing team kind of controlling the voice. That's not, I would say, especially in a regulated industry or an industry that isn't fully living in the tech space all day, every day. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. My question for you, Jonathan, is how did you get did you have to persuade these executives to do this, or was it an easy ask?
Well, here it has been a pretty easy ask. I don't want to make it just a complete total love fest, but our CEO has led our company for almost 20 years or 18 years. And when I started in 97, we had about 800 people, and today we're at almost 13,000. And he's always been an innovator and a person who believes in hiring people to do what he hired them to do. And so when I came back, he said, look, social media, you do what's right within the confines of, good faith. And so obviously, as Shelley knows, I do try to, though I don't like to color in the lines, I do try to be cautious, but I usually just run the idea up and say, hey, Dave, you want to be on a Periscope, or go to my manager and say, I found this technology that I think will expand our, not only our client base, but our reach. And so I tossed out the Periscope idea, and everybody said, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Let's try it out. I'll tell you where I found the pushback, and I don't know about Brian, maybe because of the conferences you go to. I have had a couple of the conferences that I attended, and I kind of let them know I'm going to be broadcasting our thought leaders live from a session. And they were like, whoa, no, you're going to broadcast our content for free. We're asking people to pay to come to this.
Yeah.
And so I've convinced both of them though to say, look, if I'm going to pay $2,000 to go to a conference, hearing that Jonathan Mast is going to broadcast one thought leader for 1 hour from somewhere is not going to make me suddenly cancel my reservation and not attend a conference. I believe it actually expands that conference's ability to attract people who want to come next year. Because if I'm watching somebody talk about a topic I'm interested in, I'm going to be more likely to sign up and come next year. So both of the conferences that pushed back on that both said, okay, we get, we see that point, and we're okay with you live streaming from our event. But I do know that I've heard other people say that is a concern about this particular platform. I don't know about you, Brian.
Jonathan, I'll jump in. I mean, I'll go back quite a few years ago. Over 10 years ago, I used to do some of this. It wasn't live streaming, so we didn't have that, but we would capture some of the sessions, maybe 2 or 3 breakout sessions. And I know that a lot of the conference organizers said the same thing that you said. And fortunately, CLO Magazine is it's a learning magazine targeting the learning and professional development folks inside corporate training departments. They went ahead and did it, and they actually were able to show that because they did some of this, what you just said, it was like a teaser. It got more people exposed to the content and the show. What happened is it drove more people to the website within the days after the event, and the next event they had registration improved or increased by like 15%. So, I mean, I think it's only a positive. The challenge is getting over that hump and getting them to try it one time, now or even over the last 10 years, right? Whether it be live or even canned.
Well, I think
Brian,
part of it.
Brian, what do you experience?
So for me, I think part of it is really just educate. I mean, most people are saying no to live streaming because they don't know what it is, right? Or they don't understand its ultimate value. So one of the things for me has been, a social media marketing world was a good example where, Mike Stelzer, when I first reached out to him, said he had no interest. He had people that are not only paying for tickets, but he also sells a live stream through livestream.com for $499. You can watch all the live stream content. And so for me, it was actually talking about what the value is. I mean, it's the same thing as the NHL. The NHL wanted to stop every fan from live streaming with their phone. And last time I checked, if you're paying for live stream pay-per-view for a hockey game, it's hard to watch it on an HD TV compared to someone's mobile device. And so what the value that I kind of talk to is like, there's two things I listen to from the event perspective, what they care about. And it's either future signups or trending on Twitter, right? Like that seems to be like the two. Periscope gives you an advantage and a lead in on both of those depending on how you use them. So for social media marketing world, my entry there was, hey, I'm not going to live stream any of your keynotes, but I do want to interview every one of your people that are giving a keynote before they go on stage, backstage, giving people access to a place they couldn't get somewhere else. I think that's ultimately the marketing aspect of, because I don't think live streaming replaces any other channel, and I don't think it even competes in any of these other places. For me, what it's able to do is you need to leverage the fact that it's mobile and the fact that it's live stream. I mean, I was at an IBM event this past week, ran their IBM handle from the @IBM handle, and they were amazed. They got 1,480 people, ended up being over 2,000, including the replays. 2,000 people watched a 1-hour presentation, through a unique perspective. Yes, they had 14,000 people there in the stands, but this was giving those 2,000 people an opportunity to not only participate, but 48 of their questions were answered by the panel because we brought the questions in from Periscope. Right. So for me, it's a unique value proposition, not replacing something they already get somewhere else.
Hey, Brian, I got a question for you. So I know that a lot of conferences where they have a paid speaker, they're paying 20, 50,000 or more, that their content is their brand, right? Yeah. So have you run across or seen how that was handled? Did they maybe just let people live stream before or after? Or, I mean, how was it during the actual presentation?
So the two that I ran into with that, both of them, what I kind of presented to them, I didn't really give them a chance to say no. What I gave them a chance was I gave them 3 options to say yes. And really what I said was, hey, I will live stream it. I will amplify it. I'll make sure you're tagged in it. You'll get more Twitter notifications than you'll know what you'll do with. Or B, what I will do is I will live stream it. I will not save it to catch or store the replay, and I'll send you the video file afterwards. You can do with what you wish, or I will give you a kind of an out brief of all the things directly after, and you'll see that it's on catch, so it's on there. I'll upload it to YouTube, and you'll have the live stream replay for 24 hours. I'll give you all of those locations. You let me know which one of them you want me to take down.
So which ones did they choose? Which ones did they choose?
Actually, both of them chose number 3. Where they said, do it all, but as soon as the event's over, and like one of them was like, in a half hour after I'm off stage, I want to know all the assets so I can cut off what I don't want. Both of them chose 3. Both of them didn't shut down a single thing because of the notifications, awareness, and like value. They were like, I had no idea this many people liked my keynote. And the one person said they got feedback on their keynote that they've never got before because people are watching it live and going, oh, that's a great example. And he was an example he was going to cut from his keynote. So for me, that they all 3 chose the third one, which was like, give me master control of where the content goes afterwards. And 2 of them said, hey, fine, keep running it. And even at IBM, like with Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, they were hilarious because afterwards they were like, Periscope was presented to us like someone was selling our content off. We didn't know you were just amplifying our message. Because that's what I said. I was like, I wanted to be able to tell your story to the masses. And he was like, man, if I knew that, I would have, because I pitched them to their stage manager about letting me come backstage and doing the same thing I had done for some of the other execs and like interview them before they go on stage, tell them what they're going to talk about, get some of that, like, I'd say fluffy stuff behind the scenes. And afterwards they were like, if it was presented correctly to us, they would have said yes. Unfortunately, it seemed like it was live streaming to sell it off for some reverse profit margin somewhere down the line.
Interesting.
And Eric, if I had a similar experience just recently, we paid for a guest speaker at it or sponsored them, and that this person's people said, well, we don't want you live streaming during his presentation, and then we finally reached an agreement that I could do 6 to 7 minutes of the content, and I said that's fine. And similar, Brian, after we did it, and I showed them the numbers of people and things that people wanted to know, and probably will lead to more speaking engagements. They're kind of like, oh, well, we might want to start doing this all the time. Yeah. So again, seeing is believing sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think the other thing on Periscope, that we've obviously that made another big difference was the Catch Me channel, and being able to now use that and record and capture all our content so that it is there for a historical purpose. So as always, invention is, people something comes up and somebody invents something that helps you
Yeah.
do that. And once I was able to say, hey, now you can catch our content anytime, it's great to direct people back to those.
No, I was going to ask you that because Chris Brogan and I actually had a very good heated debate on Blab after early days of Periscope because he was burying live streaming in Periscope because there was no evergreen ability, right? So he was really said, I would much rather create a video blog that I control all the variables, and do that kind of side. Where eventually, when we say, hey, there's catch. Also, the ability to save it to your phone. I now have sent off. I sent off just recently, just this week, 20 of my favorite periscopes that I've done that I'm going to get split into a 15-minute roll that someone can actually use as a piece of content as well. But you're right. I think that third party aspect, but also the feedback. I've been amazed from a content side, like digital. I'm sure it's for you. People get access to information they probably never have had before. One of the people said, if you don't want me to, I'll just live stream you presenting and not your slide deck. Therefore, you're still controlling some of the message. It's not getting all out there. But it's also kind of, then it actually gives someone then they only see what you're saying. So it's also another avenue for feedback. So are people getting value without seeing your slides? There's some unique ways that even a brand can present it. If you say, hey, I need to get feedback from my customers and I want to know what they think about my website, rather than pointing it at your website, why not talk through the same value propositions that you have on your website? And then do they actually convey a message to them there? If they're not conveying when they can look you in the eyes, they sure as hell aren't going to convey when they're on a stale website. I think, some interesting plays to make in that for sure.
Well, and to that point, you're already a lot of times if you're already recording, you've got the content. Again, you can split it up, you can repurpose it. And Shelley knows this. Another one of, that I think that I've always felt strongly about is we all work so hard as content creators to create great content. And then a lot of times we just let it languish on the vine. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer in taking what I've worked my butt off to happen and then to reuse it multiple times and many times. And I'm sure, that's not unique, but I just encounter people all the time who are like, oh, I shot that video, but I never used it again. And I'm like, look, you can take that and use it in so many ways. So, and I love the behind the scenes stuff too. And that's something I'm working a little bit more on that I think more executives are a little bit more cautious about. You say, hey, let's do it behind the scenes before you come out on stage and do a Periscope. And then they're like, does anybody care? But, people, again, it's that humanization. And I keep coming back to that because we're insurance, especially banking, engineering. A lot of these places are seen as cold, sterile work environments. And we all have great people there. So I want to bring that to life.
And especially in your industry, I'm sure, I was dealing with a customer service brand this morning. And for me, we're going to implement Periscope in a customer service perspective. And part of it was just putting a human face on it because people are making so much of their judgment based on the fact that they can call up and they're yelling at a brand. They're not yelling at a human. And even, one of my favorite things on doing it behind the scenes, like you said, with executives is let me give you the opportunity to fail with a cushion. Because if people know that you're human beforehand, if you happen to screw up on stage or you put your foot in the mouth or something goes wrong, people already built the relationship with you. They're going to forgive you and let that kind of go pour. And I think that's a great thing with brands. I love kind of when you were talking to start off the show and you were talking about, not only driving change, but providing a window into or leveraging social in an industry that's probably still figuring out what that is. I'm sure the reason it starts to take off isn't because you're getting a whole bunch of retweets or hearts or likes or whatever they're calling on Twitter now on your tweets, but it's ultimately you're building like the human relationship with some people that you probably wouldn't have had access to you before.
Well, I'm personally glad they changed it to hearts because I feel much better doing that on Shelley than just giving her a star.
Yeah, I don't need to give trophies to everybody. I like giving hearts to everybody.
No participation.
Well, hey, Jonathan. I'm sure you get asked this a lot at barbecues. You work in claims management services. It must be tough. You must get some tough situations are out there from a social media perspective. Can you share maybe one of those tough situations and how you handled it, how you're able to maybe hopefully overcome it?
Yeah, I think that's another area where we've started demonstrating and my, again, stealing other people's great phrases, but if you're not in the conversation, it's happening without you. And so I've been able to show in presentations and to our executives, here are where people they're on Twitter. We live in the microwave or even faster than microwave society now. We're a phone, we still tend to be a phone-based business where people call in to talk to one of our claims professionals. Now, if we don't get a phone call answered, whatever the business we're dealing with, we immediately are thinking, why am I not getting any help? People are going more and more to Twitter in our industry to say, I placed one phone call and I need help now. And what I found is that 99% of the time so far is if I answer that person on Twitter, I get a lot of holy bleep. I can't believe you guys are even on social media. I was just out here griping. And so I'm taking that offline, removing and diffusing a situation which we certainly never want to go beyond that initial statement. The last thing any company wants is to have a crisis happen, and it's not a matter of if, but when. So, one of the examples I had was actually through Facebook, where we had somebody complaining early on that they were not receiving a payment. I took the conversation offline, and kind of funny ending. The story was this particular person, the wife didn't know that the person was getting their check. And so apparently the claimant might have been spending the money. And so anyway, I just find that it's the chili peppers. Anyway, it's
Lola. She's sick today. She's saying hi.
It has turned out very well so far, and again, to quote Don Draper, control the narrative. And so in our industry, it's still a small number, but it's growing, and I'm seeing it growing every month. The number of people, especially on Twitter, who are asking us questions. How can I get a claim resolved? And so I'm excited. I think, again, we're seeing the opportunity for customer service to expand beyond the traditional bounds.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question without being too specific.
No, it's good. We appreciate that, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
I think the other place where we've seen the biggest change, as I go back to the videos, but we have a lot of opportunity there to tell small micro stories and we have a really complex industry, and you can read an 8-page white paper, but one of our experts can sit down and tell you in 90 seconds everything you need to know about not everything, but a lot that you need to know about the new FMLA leave policy. And while that might have some people hit the snooze button, if you care about it and you can learn about it in 90 seconds versus trying to wade through an 8-page white paper, there's a lot of value there to take to your client base and your customer base.
Well, it's kind of like the days of the instruction manual being so far behind us, because when you buy something and there's an instruction manual, you throw it away and you go to YouTube and you look for instructions on how do I make this thing work. And what you're doing is the exact same thing from a business standpoint. And that's what all of us want. We want the easy button. We don't want to have to wade through boring stuff. Just give me what I need to know in as quick and as easy to understand format as humanly possible, and let me go on about my business. And that's a big solution that you're delivering.
Right. I did want to jump, if we can, I do want to talk about the blab, and I wanted to say I felt your pain at the beginning today.
Did you truly feel it? Because it was hurting right in here.
I was sweating. But I have had a lot of, I haven't done nearly the number that Brian has or Shelley at this point, but the 3 or 4 scheduled blabs that I have tried, almost every one of them I have suffered failure to launch. Yeah. The ability to get people to join, and so I've had better experience just going live. But we did do we did something on opioid addiction in America, which is
a big deal.
It is a big deal.
I know.
And it was full of, again, it made it live because I don't know if she's on right now, but our chief medical director, the UPS guy, came to the door right in the middle of our blab.
They always do.
And of course, the dog goes crazy
Or your sick daughter, walks into your office.
Does a photo bomb. And her dog ran out and jumped in the UPS truck right in the middle of our blab. So here she forgets to disengage, and we see her, walking toward the door. And but again, we had 100 people join who may or may not have anything to do immediately with may not be any of our clients, but we just made people aware, and we seemed very human. We got a lot of, fun comments from that. And even though initially Dr. B was kind of like, oh my gosh, this was terrible, I said, no, this is real. This is
right.
This is nothing like you would ever see at any of our other industry events. And nobody felt it was unacceptable. They thought it was interesting,
right,
and it was different. And so I said, honestly, I couldn't have planned it better if Skippy the dog had run and jumped in the UPS truck. I thought it was great. So
and I think that's the insight into the psyche of the American consumer today, Jonathan. And perhaps, I say American, and I don't necessarily mean that it's limited only to Americans, but I'm just saying consumers today, is that we don't want polish. We don't want the corporate BS. We don't want your on-brand messaging. We don't want your beautiful pictures and your slick videos. We want real, because we can trust real. We feel like that. I mean, we've talked for so many years about social being able to humanize businesses and brands. And this is truly so real, and it continues to evolve as we add live streaming and video into what it is we do and how we connect with our customers and our prospective customers. And I think that the more that senior leaders can understand that concept and just realize that we need to walk away from the slick brochures and all the stuff that ad agencies have been producing for us for years, and just we're the people behind this brand. We're the people that are taking care of you all day, every day, and we're here to help you. And by the way, the UPS guy just rang the door and my dog is going crazy. And everybody lives that, in some way or another. Everybody lives that. And I think that really does. And it also is a huge point of differentiation between you and your competitors, because you've walked out on this limb that is a scary limb to go out on. And once you do, it really does set you apart from so many others that are playing in this space, whether you're an insurance company or an engineering firm or whatever it is you do. It can be a huge point of differentiation.
Well, why don't we leave it on that note? Because I know that our time is up a little bit. So I wanted to thank Jonathan once again. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your insight. We appreciate it very much.
I'm trying to give Shelley a heart, but because I went to plan C on my technology, I'm holding my mobile phone going live. So that's, but anyway, half a heart is better than no heart. Right,
Thank
Shelley?
you so much, Jonathan, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
That's it for this episode of Marketing MASH. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.